Alright, welcome to another episode of This Week in Overwatch, where we summarize all the happenings in and around Overwatch, especially on social media and the places where maybe you haven't heard all the hot topic discussions. And a hot topic has indeed come with perhaps one of the biggest announcements in Overwatch esports history, and I'm not overstating that, the announcement of the Overwatch Champion Series. This is literally hot off the presses. It's just like an hour ago this has gone public. And essentially what this is a complete shake-up and re-envisioning of what esports means in Overwatch. So none of you will, like me, have been out of touch with what's been going on. I mean, I was out of touch with Overwatch esports even before it collapsed. But the Overwatch League is no more. There will never be, or I won't say never, but there will not be any further Overwatch League. Instead, it's going to be replaced by this thing called the Champion Series. Play Overwatch released like this 7.5 minute long video, which has like Zoe and Jared Noose and Bailey talking about what the future of Overwatch esports is. I'm just going to quickly summarize what they said. Feel free to go watch the whole video yourself if you want more specific details. I'm going to summarize the big talking points and then what that means for Overwatch. Essentially, the first and major part of this, as we'll show with any of these graphics. So there's going to be 3 sub-regions, so NA, EMEA, which is Europe, Middle East, and North Africa, I believe, and Asia. And they're all going to have their own individual circuits that they compete in for the majority of the year. And these are open to anyone. So the key and the big talking point that's been emphasized is that these are going to be open to everyone. They're going to be open qualifiers that anyone can form a team and participate in and rise to the top. And I think twice a year, there's going to be a sort of internal competition within these regions that picks the top teams, and those top teams will all meet in a international tournament that will take place as a LAN event, which means that they'll all assemble in the same location and play there, and then one of them will be crowned like the overall champion. So that'll be twice a year. There's a lot of details about the structure, so it looks stuff like this, where they'll have like little stages in between, a major where, you know, they'll come together and they'll pick a champion, and the champion will play in a LAN party, and then more mini tournaments that leads to the finals. So this is what the calendar will look like. There's going to be a major in May and a major in November. There's going to be a gap in June, July, which potentially is there to be filled by independent tournament organizers. And then for the rest of the year, basically, there's going to be lots of little, you know, events and tournaments going on. So the 2 major things, like I said again, that are from this are A, that anyone can qualify, anyone can sign up, and that's going to be done via Faceit. So this is unprecedented for Overwatch, and again, we're going to elaborate on that in a second. And the other part is that there's going to be a LAN in Dallas, in DreamHack Dallas, and then one in DreamHack Stockholm. So Jared Noose actually specifically says that, you know, we know European fans of Overwatch esports have said that we haven't had a LAN in a long time, and so we wanted to give them that. So this is apparently some Scandinavian people. This is the representation of Europe that we get in the B-roll footage. So there's going to be a DreamHack Stockholm and a DreamHack Dallas, and the Stockholm one's going to be like the big major finals. So big news for European fans like myself who now have a potential event to go to. I saw Reinforce was quite happy about this, so good on them. But yeah, so that's how they will crown the eventual champion. And this is the squad, by the way, Zoe and Bailey and Jared who announced this. So I think that to assess what this means for Overwatch esports, I think the biggest and most positive thing is that it is no longer franchised. From the minute it happened, and was a large part of why I stopped caring about Overwatch League, the franchise model has been something I have been strongly against, and I think a lot of people have really disliked. The reasons for employing it is fairly obvious, which is that, you know, big brands pay a lot of money to have a permanent spot in the Overwatch League, but it was just bad in every way, right? It made competition really bad because the teams knew that they were all going to get an equal cut of the revenue that Overwatch League generated, regardless of where their team finished. You know, obviously there was some prize winnings for winning stuff, but whether you finished 7th or 17th, you were roughly going to get the same amount of money. So a lot of brands, they just stopped caring at all. They stopped functioning, or they stopped fielding like functioning teams, basically. And they were half-assing it, which meant that the entire Overwatch League by the end became a bit of a farce. Became hella stupid. On top of that, it robs the meritocracy that I think is the reason sports is popular at all. The reason people enjoy sports is the idea that like the best team or the best player wins. and anyone can become that best team or best player, and surprises and upsets can take place. You know, underdog stories, Cinderella stories, all these things that draw us to sports are robbed by the franchise model, where you know it's going to be the same teams every time, and they can't ever lose and be relegated, for example, and new teams can't arrive and shake up the scene. It's always the same old players. It was the same players as well, bouncing between the teams. So it was not only the same teams, but the same, 100 names were bouncing around. This is more of a throwback to earlier Overwatch Esports, which was amazing, and I enjoyed it a lot personally. Back when it was just a bunch of individually formed teams coming from places you never expected and sort of forming synergy and rising to the top together. And I think back of obviously the Apex tournament in Korea, which was kind of peak Overwatch Esports, and teams like Envious and Rogue and Lunatic High. And to give an example of what I mean, I'm going to have to take you on a bit of a history tour, a little bit of a trip back. For those of you who have not been around as boomerishly long as I have in the Overwatch scene, the Apex tournament was basically this tournament that took place in Korea, and it was largely Korean teams, although sometimes foreign teams, as they're, would be called in Korea, would turn up and play. And a European team called Envious famously turned up and won one time in Apex. But largely, in Apex, there was a dominant team called Lunatic High, who were, at that time, the best players basically in the world, because they were all Korean, right? They were all South Korean. And remember, then early esports of Overwatch, it was all Korea all the time. So Korea won they won the first 2 World Cups, and they were basically the best players, period. So they had Miro, who was the person who basically wrote the book on how to play Winston, Ryu Jae-hong, who wrote the book on how to play Ana, Zunba, who wrote the book on how to play Zarya. So you get the picture that they had elite players that basically pioneered so much of early Overwatch. They were basically the dominant team in Korea, and then the last year that the Apex tournament took place before Overwatch League, a then unknown team by the name of GC Busan turned up, representing the region of Busan. They were basically a completely independent team. Nobody had heard about them. They were just kind of scrapped together, a plucky band of 6 players, if you will. And they went and won the whole thing. They won the Apex tournament. And those names now you will be very familiar with. They sported the likes of Gesture, Prophet, I believe Wu Yao. I don't think Birdring was on that team, but these are some, they would go on to be legendary names, particularly Gesture and Prophet. And we got that because this small band of players had great synergy. They knew each other. They were well coordinated together, and that allowed them to overcome the on-paper might of Lunatic High. And those are the kind of stories that I think everyone gravitates towards. So we finally have the chance for something like that to happen again, where previously unknown players, right, players who maybe have not had too much of a footprint, they might not be well known to even streamers and people involved in high elo ladder, because you can kind of assemble a team with 5 buddies and rise to the top. So very exciting for Overwatch Esports. I will hold a little bit of skepticism of just whether the train has been missed. Is it too late? The only kind of question mark would be, is it too late? Is the interest in Overwatch Esports dead now? Is interest in Overwatch overall kind of dwindling? We don't know. I'd like to think it'll do well. I think the good thing is that there's a lot of content creators who are interested. J3 has in particular been doing a lot of great stuff in kind of pro Overwatch and keeping it alive and keeping interest in it going. And during the World Cup, we saw him and Flats and Emong and all them and ML kind of do these co-streams and get a lot of views. So whether that interest will carry over into pro esports, we'll wait and see. But in terms of the moves that the Overwatch team is making, this is a great move. Very, very glad they got rid of the franchise model that you could buy your way into. And instead, we have a meritocracy. So it should be really fun and exciting if you're at all bothered about Overwatch Esports. And if you're not, or if you lost interest like me, then I think this is still something we can keep our eyes on as potentially interesting, and will potentially provide for some cool moments. Again, a lot of it also comes down to how Overwatch handles its game itself and its balancing, but we'll get to talking about more of that in a moment. First, before we do that, we're going to move on to a wider industry topic, which actually we're going to talk about Riot Games. Usually when we're talking about Riot Games in relation to Overwatch, it's usually about how much better they're managing their games than Overwatch is, but this is one of those rare situations where the opposite is occurring, because as Overwatch announces this very encouraging, promising esports venture, Riot shared yesterday news that they are laying off 11% of their employees. So that is massive. Like, can you imagine laying off 11% of a company? So they released this statement. It's a long, well, it's not too long, and I will say that it's actually a well-written statement. So yeah, as they say in their statement, 530 roles, which represents around 11% of rioters. It's kind of a cheap time to refer to your employees as, oh, they're rioters. They're like one of us when you're laying off 530 of them and 11% of your employees. So it is unequivocally just a terrible state for game development to be in. The statement I said, like I said, the reason I said the statement is well written is because they talk about, like, you know, look, this isn't to appease shareholders or to hit a quarterly earnings number. It's necessity. We're losing money. We know that firing people is people with families, people with jobs, people with mouths to feed. We know that it's going to impact lives, and we don't take that, you know, lightly. So that part is good, but unfortunately it rings hollow when the reasoning they give for laying off all these people is essentially that they made a bunch of investments and, you know, they took a few risks with what they thought would come good, and it didn't come good, and they lost a bunch of money, and now they need to lay off a bunch of employees. As people have rightly pointed out, this is one of these disgusting moments where you know that there's still going to be CEOs and bigwigs at the top of the company making it, you know, raking in $1 million salaries plus, and will shamelessly continue to do so. And instead of the risk that they took, right? So the upper management are the people who took these risks and took these gambles, right? They're the ones who were like, oh, we think this will go good and this will go good, and then it didn't. So they take the risks, and when they are wrong, and when it comes to time to blame someone, the employees are the ones who take the burden. They're the ones who get sacked. They're the ones who are made unemployed and now have to worry about their financial future, while the bigwigs continue to eat good. And even if they are going to be let go of, which there's no news that they are going to be letting go of higher ups. So far, all the news has come that, you know, your general everyday workers are the ones being let go. But even when those bigwigs are let go, they come with huge severance packages, like we saw with Bobby Kotick, where, you know, just disgusting amounts of money goes to them. So unfortunately, once more, it represents the shitty elements of game development and gaming as a whole, which is that, like any other business in the capitalistic model, the people who suffer are the everyday, and the people who continue to be immune to the consequences of their own actions are the rich and the wealthy and the powerful. So to bring the contrast, it was brought up again on social media that Nintendo CEO, when they were announced loads of losses after the Wii U. So this is a very directly comparable example, which is that when Nintendo launched the Wii U, they thought it was going to be great. It didn't perform super well. But rather than lay off a bunch of people, the Nintendo CEO, Satoru Iwata, I hope I pronounced that correctly, took a 50% pay cut, which still would have left him several hundred thousand to the good, right? He would have still brought in $700,000, but he took that 50% pay cut as to not fire employees. Again, we may question why a CEO's 50% pay cut would pay for, like, hundreds of developers. Like, we might question, like, why the discrepancy lies there anyways. But I still think that on an individual level, this is so much better as a action to take as a leader than whatever the fuck Riot just did. This isn't the only time that Satoru Iwata has done this, and has done this in other situations as well. I think after COVID, he did this as well, where there was severe losses in the company, and rather than put it on the employees, he took the cut himself. Unfortunately, so this is, again, just a sad state of gaming, that this is the norm. Well, this is the norm. Riot's behavior is the norm, not Nintendo's behavior. But something to note that for once it's not Overwatch and Blizzard being accused of horribly mismanaging their games. It's actually Riot who are under the firing line for just doing bad shit. Now, moving back on Overwatch, a certain clip has been trending in the Overwatch hemisphere, which is that the clip is titled, "There was truly not a single game that played like the first Overwatch." I'm going to now play you this clip. It's a minute and 22 seconds long, and be prepared to have your mind numbed as you watch what you're about to watch. Peak double shield.
Shield, like that, they came to shield. Just break the shield, break the shield.
Okay, I lamp after Sigma Matrix.
You
So
ready?
this is Defran, by the way. He's, you know,
Okay, go.
a very well-known streamer and high-level player. So this is double shield. This is Volsky Industries. For those of you who are not familiar with some of these things,
Up top.
in Overwatch 1, there was a map called Volsky Industries, 2CP. And this is original double shield. So Sigma, a lot stronger. Orisa has a shield. He's playing Bastion with a Mercy Pocket and a Maid. There's a Hanzo on the other side, and then, you know, Sig, Bap, Orisa. It's basically a complete war of attrition, as they're just chucking shit at each other, chucking damage at each other.
Wait for the lamp, wait. wait for the lamp. Wait. Do you have
You
lamp?
can hear the call outs talking about like, you know, wait for the lamp. The lamp at this point was even stronger than it is currently.
Lamp down soon.
Lasted longer, had more HP, had a shorter cooldown, if you can believe it. The Mercy gets the res off on Orisa, and after this hours of what feels like a war of attrition, I think this BAP is going to build his second window.
We have lamp and abundance. We can go. Nice.
Let's go.
And then finally, they're going to break through here. And there you go. Finally, after just hours of spamming, 2 windows built by the Baptiste, countless shields drop, they break through the war of attrition. So this was basically double shield typified. This was probably the worst it ever was. This was like, I think, just off the rip before some of these characters got a little bit nerfed. But still, this is what you didn't experience if you didn't play Overwatch 1, and what people often talk about traumatically as double shield. So it sparked a lot of discussions on Twitter, people saying, well, this is still better than Overwatch 2. Hawk, I believe, pointed out, like, yeah, well, this is down to, in fact, let me see if I can find Hawk's tweet. So Hawk replies underneath, 1500 HP Sig shield, 150 to 175 HPS shield, so that's how quickly it recharges. 8-second drone duration, which again is unfathomable now, but 20-second drone cooldown, 200 to 250 HP drone, 20% faster window, 900 HP Orisa shield, 8 to 9 second shield cooldown, 7 meter pull radius. So pull, again, for those who don't know, before Orisa had her spear, she had a halt, which was like a little orb that she threw out, like a mini graviton surge, and when she pressed the button again, it would like yoink people in who were nearby. So 7 meter pull radius, and 4 months to nerf, he says, showing Mauga from the season equals the same thing. So Hawk's argument is that this is basically showing Overwatch at its worst, in the same way that if you showed people clips of Mauga, it'd be the same thing. It again led to discussions that, well, at least the current Overwatch 2 team are much better at balancing, much quicker at balancing, I should say. Whether better or not is subjective, but much quicker. They change things quickly, as we saw with Mauga. They nerfed him after a suitable amount of time, after they were back from their holidays, basically. And then, you know, other people saying, well, yeah, if they had paid that kind of attention to Overwatch 1, maybe we wouldn't have needed Overwatch 2, we wouldn't have needed 5v5, etc., etc. So just bear in mind, though, for those who haven't seen what double shield looked like, this is what double shield looked like, basically. Will definitely trigger some PTSD in a lot of old vets. More people also pointed out that this is also, by this point, actually, Overwatch had already gone down the shitter. That already they had the fact that the biggest problematic characters in here, in fact, are all the what we'd call DLC heroes, right? So Sigma, Orisa, Baptiste are all new releases in the game, you know, compared to its original roster. So critics again pointed out that this is also another example of just the devs adding shit that made the game worse. But I will leave you to decide. Tell me in the comments below how you feel about this clip that you've just seen. Is this representative of Overwatch 1, or do you feel like this is misrepresentative of Overwatch 1 was still better, or even with this was still better than Overwatch 2? Let me know. We then head to Aaron Keller himself, the big boss, who says, we learned a ton from the first quick play hack. While we still want to try new things in quick play hack to make the game more fun, we won't be running the quicker play version again this season. Based on feedback, we'll make changes to the format before we bring it back next season. So a couple interesting nuggets already to take from just this little tweet. One, we already knew there was going to be another quick play hacked, but there will be another quick play hacked relatively soon. They won't bring back quicker play this season. However, they are already declaring that they will bring it back next season. So last time when we did This Week in Overwatch, we spoke about the quicker play hacked, and I said that this is a good indicator that the devs are leaning into what they believe is Overwatch's biggest strength, which is that it's a quick game, right? You go in and out in 5 to 10 minutes, unlike a Valorant, unlike a League of Legends, unlike even in Apex, if you're actually going the distance, it takes a lot longer for the game to finish. Clearly, they're not dissuaded by the forums being hella annoyed that quicker play existed. They seem quite happy, quite determined to go ahead with it. Seems like they will be leaning again in towards a quicker version of Overwatch. So whatever your feelings are, be prepared for it to return next season. Maybe not so extreme. I'm almost certain that they will, you know, you can clip this, mark this, whatever. I'm pretty sure in the next 6 to 12 months, the time that an Overwatch game lasts will be reduced. Like, we will go down. Things will happen quicker. Average game time will go down, you know, whether that's objective caps being faster, spawns being faster, something like that. Moving on from that, we're going to head to some comedy relief now. We've talked about some serious topics. We're going to talk some more comedy relief now. Here is Samido's candidate for, I think, the most valued dry blade in Overwatch 2. Here, watch it with me. So it's Gibraltar. He's playing Genji. 96% to his ult. His team is clearly winning a fight, and you'll now notice that the card is going.
The things I do to save my team. Yeah, keep saying C9, buddy. Yeah, keep saying C9. You're not kidding me. Not today. Not today.
Classic Samido, which is that if you notice, the guy starts typing C9 in chat. Okay, you guys can't see it, but the guy starts typing C9 in chat. The Sombra who's trying to backcap starts typing C9. Samido pulls the blade out just to get the dash reset so he can touch. And then he takes out the Sombra, saves his team the point, and gets a little hype. So I do think I commented underneath that this was the biggest value blade in Overwatch 2, and I agree. I think this is like the biggest value dry blade that you'll see in Overwatch 2, which is that he gets a kill and he saves an objective. So worth. And then our final piece of comic relief comes from that ever bountiful well that is Overwatch Rule 34. And as I was browsing my social media, I came across from an account that is just one of these Twitter accounts that is like famous for posting just like, you know, popular memes. Posted this. This game sucks ass. How did you find out about it? So shit post giveaway. Posted, this game sucks ass. How did you find out about it? Pornography. And it's a copy of Overwatch 2 in their hands. So the gift that keeps on giving, or perhaps the torment that keeps on tormenting, depending on your perspective, is the accusations that Overwatch will never shake, that its pornography is its best asset. I was just amused by the fact that this otherwise very popular Twitter account that just posts normal shit had a little reference to Overwatch 2. On that note, I think I'll go play some Diva.